Hi. What is up, guys? It's your boy One4 here, and today I am back, and I bet you never thought you'd hear that again. Moving swiftly onwards, we are today going to be going through my Premier League prediction. Before we get into this, I'd like to say a few things. First of all, I've tried not to be biased, but there's at least a few teams here and there which you'll be definitely saying I am being biased. I tried not to be, but there's going to be situations where a bias probably have come out, and definitely with one pick. Second of all, this is going to be more of like a podcasty sort of video where there won't be much or any visual slash video to watch, so I recommend having this in the background or while you're doing something. But if you'd like to see more of this type of video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, comment down below, and let's get into it. Okay, so please keep in mind that these predictions was made the day before transfer deadline day. So any moves that happen on then will not be taken into account when these predictions are made. So coming bottom of the Premier League this season, I'm going for Sheffield United. I don't think there's any surprise there. I don't think they've signed good enough. I don't think they've got the squad to keep them up either. I don't believe that players like Oliver McBurney, Callum Robinson are good enough signings. Lys Mousset, Ravel Morrison and Phil Jagielka are the only players that have played in the Premier League out of the new signings they've brought in. Ravel Morrison played in the Premier League 5 years ago and is a complete unknown to anyone right now. Lys Mousset I've never thought was good enough while he was at Bournemouth. I don't imagine that's changing at Sheffield United. And Phil Jagielka has written all over it, bringing an old player back who next year will be put on the coaching staff. He's got one leg left. He's simply not good enough, and I don't think Sheffield United have a chance of staying up. I think they've got a very good manager in Chris Wilder, and he's done brilliantly to get them up, and to get them where they are, they've done brilliantly. I simply don't think they're good enough to stay in this Premier League or to really put up that much of a fight. I think they'll go down, and they'll be favourites to go down. I think they'll go down quite early. I get Huddersfield thoughts when I think about them. I think they're in a worse situation than Huddersfield, and I see it going really badly for Sheffield United, and I'm really concerned for them. In at 19th, I have another promoted club in Norwich City. They are often considered a yo-yo club, and I believe this trend will continue, and they will once again go down back to the Championship. I think Norwich have signed a lot better than Sheffield United, but I simply don't believe they've still got the good enough squad. I think Ralph Farman and Amadou from Sevilla is a very good signing. They've performed at the top level before and will bring a lot of experience into that side. I don't think Teemu Pukki will have anywhere near as good of a season as he did last year in the Championship, and it'll be a classic striker where they're brilliant in the Championship but very, very average to poor in the Premier League. I don't see him getting anywhere near his 29 goals from last season, and I'm going to say this now, max he'll get his 12. I honestly don't think Norwich have a good enough striker to keep him up in this Premier League. I think they'll give it as good as they can, but I just don't think they're going to survive. I think they'll be the worst out of a bad bunch, just like the team who are going to finish 18th. But they're not going to be as bad as Sheffield United, but just not make it out alive. In 18th, I have the Toon, Newcastle United. When Steve Bruce was originally appointed to replace Rafa Benitez, I was certain, no matter what, they are going down. But they've made some very good signings since. Signing Joel Linton from Hoffenheim, Alan Saint-Maximin from Nice, who I think are two fantastic young players. However, I don't think Steve Bruce is tactically smart enough. I don't think they're going to be given anywhere near enough service and opportunity to play well to keep him in the league. I think defensively, they're not going to be great. I think Rafa Benitez was perfect at setting up a defence that was hard to get past, and then obviously they grounded out results. And I don't think they'd be able to do that with Steve Bruce. I don't think he's that good of a manager. He's a C-Tech, Rafa Benitez, and you have to wonder, why is Steve Bruce been given all this money to spend when Rafa Benitez clearly wasn't? Obviously, I know they sold Jose Perez for 30 million. So realistically, they've only spent about 30 million in total net, which Rafa Benitez might have been told that, but I don't think he would have been happy with just having to spend 30 million. With that squad, it's not great. And I think it's part of the reason he has been given extra money, Steve Bruce, is to prove, oh look, this is what Rafa Benitez could have had. Try and make out as if Rafa Benitez was the bad guy. And I don't think he was. But because of this, I don't see him staying up. Steve Bruce will take his club down in 18th. However, I feel like if Joelinton and Alan St. Maximin can get off to a good start, hit the ground running, they could just about survive. But I don't see that happening, and I think they'll be the worst of a bad bunch, and they will go down in 18th. From the northeast to the south coast, where we find Brighton, these are the next team I predict to go down in 17th. They quite controversially sacked Chris Hughton at the end of last season after just about surviving relegation after a scrap with Cardiff City, and obviously they've replaced him with Graham Potter from Swansea City. I like Potter. I think he's a good manager. I think he's quite interesting appointment. I think they've signed some good players, Neil Maupay from Brentford and Maluta from Belgium. I think it's important that Graham Potter gets the best out of these players and other players in his squad, like Iva Basuma and Jahashbak, or however the hell you say that name, if he wants to stay in the league. And I feel like he can do that, because I do think Graham Potter is a good manager, and I think he has some good players around him. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Glenn Murray. Obviously, big part of them staying up last season, and we don't know what it's going to be like for him next season. Is he going to play a lot? If so, how does he fit into this Potter system? Will Neil Maupay play alongside him, or what's going to happen? It'll be interesting to see, but I think they can just about stay up if Graham Potter gets the players on his side, playing in a good system that suits everyone. But if not, then I can see them going down instead of Newcastle. And just like I can see the team above Brighton going down if things don't go the way everything is expected to go. Crystal Palace. I am genuinely concerned for Crystal Palace and their squad currently, especially if they lose Wilfried Zaha. I've lost Aaron Wan-Bissaka, their best defender, last season, 55 million, and I haven't really gone about in replacing him, nor have they actually spent much money. They brought in Victor Camarasa, who was on loan at Cardiff last season, and obviously I watched him, and he was brilliant. He was fantastic, and that's where the good signings stop for me. Jordan Ayew, stealing 11 in the Premier League. I don't know how he's still playing in the Premier League. I've never seen him play once and thought, wow, this kid could be the real deal. Honestly, I think he's terrible, and like I said, I don't know how he keeps signing for Premier League clubs. Gary Cahill, I think he's a fairly poor signing because he suits the mould of what keeps happening at Palace. They've just got old centre backs. They've got no one young enough for like in 2 years' time to step in. Everyone's going to be like 35, and it's just not a good sign for Crystal Palace. And I think they're going to be in trouble. If they sell Zaha, then they're going to lose like 40% of their goals from last season. And not only that, they're going to lose a massive part of their transition from a defence to attack. And I feel like if they do lose Wilfried Zaha, relegation could be on the cards. But from what I believe and what I'm hearing, that they'll just about keep him despite pressure from Everton to try and get him. But if they do lose Zaha, I'm going to say they would come below Newcastle. But because I think they'll keep Zaha, they're going to finish just above Brighton. In 15th, I'm going for Burnley. I don't think they've been that great in the transfer window. I think they've signed Jay Rodriguez from West Brom. That's about it. They've sold players like Tom Heaton. However, they have got a very capable replacement in Nick Pope at the club, which is a good goalkeeper. He's not as good as Tom Heaton, but he's very capable of replacement. And I think it's going to be a long, hard season for Burnley if they want to keep him up. But I think they will, due to the sheer magic of Sean Dyche and his magical bald head. Sticking with Claret and Blue, with going to say 14th will go to Aston Villa. Now, they've obviously brought a lot of players in, and that obviously went terribly for Fulham last year, who went straight back down. However, I don't predict the same fate for Villa. I believe they will survive the drop, obviously, coming 14th. I think they made a lot of good signings. I think Trezeguet's a good signing. Tom Heaton's a fantastic signing, great goalkeeper. And then Jamba from, I believe it was Club Brugge, is a good signing. I think they're all very capable players in the Premier League and will do very well for Villa. I think Wesley is a big risk. His goal return in the Belgium League wasn't great last year, scoring a lot from the penalty spot. However, it will be interesting to see how he adapts to life in the Premier League. And obviously, I think in an ideal world, they would have loved to bring Tammy Abraham back from Chelsea on loan permanently if they could, but obviously that was never going to happen, especially due to the transfer ban. It was just, they weren't able to get him on loan. I think Dean Smith did a great job last year, but due to the nature of the business, Aston Villa has to be in the Premier League, really. If you don't get off to a good start, just like Jukanovic didn't at Fulham, he'd be gone quite quickly. So I think they're going to have a good season without being spectacular and will come 14th. In at 13th, I have Ralph Hasenhüttl's side, Southampton. I'm a big fan of Hasenhüttl and believe what he's done at Southampton is brilliant. And I think they'll get better. They've signed Che Adams and Djepo, something like that, some name which I cannot pronounce, to bolster their attack. And I believe they'll both score goals, and that's exactly what they need. Southampton over the last few years have been goal shy, and I think the new signings of especially Che Adams will bring goals, and the improvement to their form that we saw at the end of last season will only continue into this year, and I think they can do really, really well this season, and I think they'll just take 13th spot. Obviously, if they bring anyone more in before now and the end of the deadline, that would be great to even further improve them. But at the moment, I think they're pretty good for 13th place. Maybe drop a bit lower, but I'm gonna stick with 13th. I think that's a good position for them and good improvement from last year, and it's helped them to try and get back to what they were under Ronald Koeman and obviously Mauricio Pochettino. In at 12th, I have FA Cup runners-up Watford. I think last year they had a fantastic campaign under Javi Gracia, and I predict a similar season from getting 12th. I don't think they've been great in the window. I don't think they've been terrible. I don't think they've signed too much. I don't really have much to say about Watford. I think they're going to have an okay season, getting 12th. And yeah, 11th, I'm going to have Eddie Howe's Bournemouth side. I think they'll just put Watford to that 11th place spot, but I'm more than willing these two clubs could quite easily swap over. I think going forward, they had a great campaign last time out with Callum Wilson and Ryan Fraser doing an absolute madness, scoring goals for fun and hitting teams all over the shop on counter-attacks. And I think that can continue. Obviously, they've lost David Brooks for a long majority of the season because of injury, but they've brought in Harry Wilson, which I think is a good replacement / signing for backup. And they've also brought in Philip Billing from Huddersfield, who got relegated, who I believe will help steady the ship at Bournemouth and help to solidify that defensive unit as a whole. And as such, we'll see them better defensively, which means they'll have a better overall performance in the league. And I think that will push them to 11th. But however, like I said, I'm more than willing to admit that Watford could take them. But I think Watford have a good chance of doing that, but I think Bournemouth will just beat them by a couple of points here and there. And the first team I see breaking into the top 10 are Wolverhampton Wanderers. I think 10th, they're certainly better than 10th, but because of European football, I feel like they'll probably drop behind the likes of West Ham and Everton to finish 10th. I think they signed quite well. I like the sign of Patrick Cutrone from AC Milan. But I expect more of the same from Wolves from last year. I mean, being defensively solid against the big teams, causing them trouble, and being great on the counter-attack, and being a force to be reckoned with. I think if it wasn't for European football, they'd probably finish around 8th, maybe 7th. But because of the European football, I think 10th. I think Wolves will take 10th and a good European run. But obviously, they would hope for more, but that's what I realistically see him getting. I think maybe they could drop to like 9th or 8th if they're lucky, but I see him getting 10th. In at 9th, I have Manuel Pellegrini's West Ham United. I think they've done brilliantly to bring in players like Pablo Fornals from Villarreal and Sebastian Haller from Frankfurt. And I think they've done even better to get rid of Marco and out of it at that changing room. And you've got 20 mil for him. That's decent money for a player that is just causing absolute mayhem in the dressing room, which it just causes hell for a team. And I think you have to get them players out the squad, like you did with Dimitri Payet. And usually you do take a loss of that. And to get 25 mil for Marko Arnautovic, despite that, is very good business. I don't rate Pellegrini, and that's why they are only 9th in my list. I think they've got a better squad than the likes of Everton, but because I don't rate Pellegrini at all, I think they'll get 9th. But I think West Ham fans will be quite happy with 9th. You might push 8th, but I feel like 9th is right about where you're going to get. In the 8th, I've got Everton. I think Marco Silva has made some great signings. These being like Gambin, Moise Kean and Fabian Delph. I think it's a good combination of youth and experience, which will not only bring the best out of the players currently in the Everton squad, but the new players as well. I think Andre Gomez, bringing him back after a fantastic loan spell last season, is a good one. I think selling Idrissa Gana Gueye is massively concerning for them, as he is a real top class player and is a big part of their success over the last few seasons. And I feel like that it could really see him drop from 8th to maybe 10th, depending on how everyone else does. However, like I say, I can see between 8th and 10th being interchangeable, and I think it's going to be a very, very interesting season. See how it goes. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how Everton do. I think 8th is about realistic for them, and I think they'll take 8th. However, I think they could very much push it, maybe up to max 7th, really, actually, if they do marvellously well, but I don't see happening. Now, this is a controversial one. I've put Chelsea in at 7th. Now, here's why. First of all, I didn't want my list to be the same as everyone else's, having the top 6 is the normal top 6. I feel like the worst team in the top 6 this season has to be Chelsea. I don't think they've got a lot worse. They lost their best player in Eden Hazard, and I don't feel like they're good enough to make up for his loss. I think they've got Christian Pulisic in, who, yeah, he's alright. He's not great, and I don't rate Frank Lampard that much as a manager. I think he is, alongside Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the worst manager in the Premier League. Well, top 6, sorry, I should say, not the Premier League. And I feel like that inexperience, especially at the top level, will cost Chelsea. That paired with the fact they have got Champions League football to play, and I think they're one of good run in that. If not, European football nonetheless in Europa League. Because if they don't get through the group, I imagine they'll get 3rd. So I feel like all that's going to just pile on. I don't see Chelsea be able to. Well, I don't think Chelsea will get top 6. However, at the same time, I'm more than willing to admit that the team above them quite easily could drop and Chelsea could go over. I've just putting Chelsea there caused a bit of controversy, and I can quite easily see it happening if things go the way I can see it happening. So yeah, in that 6th place, breaking into the top 6, I have Brendan Rodgers, Leicester City. At the end of last season, they were absolutely outstanding, and I think they're only going to get better. They've brought well. They've brought Yuri Tielemans in after a fantastic loan spell at the club. They've also brought in Jose Perez from Newcastle, while also getting £80 million for Harry Maguire. Obviously, he went to Manchester United. I'm very happy with that piece of business because it would help us improve our squad. But it's obviously a lot of money, and I feel like deadline day is tomorrow, and they could still, that's quite a lot of money they can use to go out and buy a lot of good players and to bring in a replacement centre back who's not going to be at the level of Harry Maguire, but can do just as good a job for them. But at the same time, I think they've got good backups, and I feel like if any team is to sneak into the top 6, it will be Leicester, and this is their year. They have to do it, because next year, obviously, Lampard will have money to spend and will make that team his own, whereas this year, obviously, they couldn't because of the transfer ban. Right, in at 5th place, this is where my bias may be questioned. I have gone for Arsenal. I think they've signed really, really well. I thought the signing of Pepe and Ceballos, fantastic signings. Well, they look also likely to bring in Kieran Tierney and David Luiz. I think these are all great moves aside from David Luiz. I think David Luiz is not what they need at all. He's a liability when playing in a 2, and I don't see them playing a 3 this time next year. Obviously, if they do, then he could be great, but I don't see him playing a 2. I think they'll play I think they will play a 2, not a 3. And I think a more fitting centre-back would be someone like AS Monaco, AC Milan's Alessandro Romagnoli. I feel like he's a good player. He's young, so he fits perfectly into Arsenal's defence, which they can grow. He can grow with them, and he can be there for a while, just like Laurent Koscielny was really for them. He's a leader. He's obviously captain AC Milan, so he brings leadership qualities to that defence, which I think Arsenal needs. He's left-footed, so he fits perfectly on that left-hand side next to Kieran Tierney, and he's good in the air, so he's very tall and aerial brilliant, and he's commanding, and I think they are all aspects that Arsenal really need in a centre-back, and that's what you would get with Alessandro Romagnoli. But obviously they're going for David Luiz, which I don't think is a good move for him. I don't think David Luiz is a good fit for Arsenal, and I think Chelsea would do better keeping him. Obviously, with Frank Lampard, he's an unknown, really, for the Premier League, and realistically, surely you would. If I was him, I would want to keep all the players I can, so then I can test out going 3 at the back. And David Luiz is perfect for a 3 at the back, just not quite a 2. And I think that's an issue for Chelsea and Arsenal, realistically, and I think Chelsea get 7 million out of him. I think I'd be quite good at 33, between that age, I think, for a player that just don't seem to be favoured by either manager, well, either by Chelsea. Okay, so breaking into the top 4, I have my team, my bias, Manchester United. This has been a very weird window for Manchester United and Manchester United fans. We have massively improved our defence. Spent 55 million on the best right back, well, second best right back last season in the Premier League, third probably this season after obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold and João Cancelo. And then we've spent £80 million, breaking the transfer record for Harry Maguire. Although we probably overpaid, especially on Harry Maguire for their market value, it was vital. We brought these 2 players into the team for whatever fee was required, and I think that's definitely the case for Harry Maguire. I think Maguire's probably not worth 80 million, but to us, he is, because the attributes he brings to the club and to our defence is massive. To go alongside Victor Lindelof to make what I would say the 3rd best defence in the Premier League after Liverpool and Man City's. However, midfield, we have been atrocious. So getting rid of our 2nd best in Ander Herrera, not bringing a single central midfielder in. We made 3 signings: Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Harry Maguire, and Daniel James. Daniel James looked brilliant in pre-season, but he's not really good enough to be starting week in, week out in the Premier League. So that's all he's going to be. Mason Greenwood, Chong, Gomez all had fantastic pre-season. Also, probably should not be starting in Premier League. Yeah, good for backup and whatever, but they're not going to be starting in the Premier League. Simple as that, really. So we need, in my opinion, especially if Lukaku leaves to Inter Milan or Juventus, Man United needs to bring in another striker, unless you're going to leave that back up to Mason Greenwood, which I think is a big risk. You need to bring in a striker, definitely a right winger, 2 centre mid probably, and we haven't done that. We obviously sorted our defence out, which is brilliant. That's been a big problem for the last couple of seasons, which we have sorted out, which is fantastic. However, midfield is terrible, and without Paul Pogba, we've got an average Premier League team / a top Championship midfield, which isn't good enough. I think we've got players like Fred, who bordering on a flop but could become very good. We've got Matic, who's a year older and a year slower, and that's not good enough. Unless Fred becomes the player we thought we signed, I think we could struggle. But I'm going to say 4th, because we have a very, very good attack and a very good defence, and maybe we can just ping it between the defence and the attack. I don't know. This is just my bias saying we're going to get 4th. If I was at Manchester United, I would have brought in Thomas Partey from Atletico Madrid. I think he's a great centre-back. Sorry, it's not centre-back, great midfielder. We can get him for about £50 million, which is fantastic because of his release clause. And then we're waiting for someone like Alan from Napoli, a good box-to-box midfielder who can do it all in midfield. And I think partnering that with Pogba would just gave us such a strong midfield and a strong team in general, and that would really help us push Tottenham, Man City and Liverpool closer to the title. But we haven't, and we're going to have to go for at least 6 months until January with a horrific midfield. And Paul Pogba trying to do it all like he has done for the last however many years since he's joined Manchester United. I think that is a real concern for Manchester United and Manchester United fans alike. Coming in at 3rd, I have obviously Tottenham Hotspur. I think they've had a fantastic transfer window, bringing in Tanguy Ndombele and looking like they're going to sign Giovanni Lo Celso. I think these are fantastic signings in general for any midfield, but especially for Mauricio Pochettino and Tottenham, whose midfield is absolutely horrendous before these signings. I'm not being funny. Moussa Sissoko, not good enough. Harry Winks, not good enough. But now they have 2 fantastic central midfielders that together and just in a double pivot could do so much for you. Is unbelievable. And I think them 2 signings have gone really under the radar for how fantastic they really are. And I think obviously another year under Mauricio Pochettino for the rest of the squad makes them all of a sudden even better. Players like Ryan Sessegnon might be coming in as well. I think if they can sign him, he will be good in a couple of years, but he's not a left back, he's a winger. If they plan to play him at full back, they've got something coming to him, because he's not very good defensively, not being funny. He was a decent left back in the Championship and was a terrible one when he played at left back for Fulham last year. He's a good winger, maybe lower tier Premier League at the moment, but obviously playing under Poch, you're going to get better. I think it's a fantastic signing if they can get that over the line too. Paulo Dybala, obviously he was linked to Manchester United and Spurs. He's not going to come. He's not going to go to any of them. I'll eat my hat if they do, but it's not going to happen. So at 3rd place, I have Spurs finishing as the best of the rest. And yeah, let's get on to 2nd place. Coming in 2nd is, drumroll please, Liverpool. Now, here's why. I don't think they've strengthened anywhere near enough as what they needed to push Manchester City from just what they were last year. And Man City have improved. I'll talk about them further when we get to them. So yeah, I don't think Liverpool have strengthened at all. They've brought in, I think, 2 players, both youngsters, so they're not going to be featured in the first team this season. And I don't think they're going to be anywhere near as lucky as they were last season, to be honest with you. I think last year they were lucky with injuries. None of their forward line got injured for a significant amount of time. Obviously with the introduction of VAR, Salah won't be able to dive as much to get penalties, and if he does keep diving, he will get booked and sent off a lot more. And obviously they scored quite a lot of goals from like referee mistakes, and it got them a few points. Like I remember West Ham, West Ham drew one all of them. James Milner, no, I think it was Sadio Mane scored from a James Milner assist that was miles offside. Obviously, VAR will get rid of that straight away, which will see them drop from, in my opinion, closer to the 85, 90 point mark rather than 95, 97 mark. But yeah, I feel obviously Liverpool still have a chance to improve. They still have deadline day to go on and sign loads of players, but I don't see it happening. And I do see Man City walking home with the league. And that, of course, means I think Manchester City will win the Premier League. I think they will just run the league like they have for the last 3 years. They have the best squad in the country, and they've just thrown another £100 million worth of oil money right at it like that. Meaning they've got an even better squad. They've improved more than Liverpool have by tenfolds. And they're going to win it again, like they have the last 2 years. And I think it's honestly concerning that how easily they seem to be winning it, and I think how easily they're going to win it again. They're going to, I think, again, they'll be near the 100-point mark, there or thereabouts, and I think it's really, really concerning how far ahead they are, especially compared to Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United. Obviously, Liverpool are close, but they're nowhere near Man City, in my opinion, still. I would say they're a good 10 points behind them. And that is concerning. Very, very concerning for me. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed my Premier League prediction. If you have, make sure you hit that like button below. Subscribe if you're new. Doubt you will be, but we can hope. But remember, just comment down below what picks you disagree with. There'll be loads of them I'm sure you disagree with, and I want to hear it in comment below. Do you agree with me on any of them? Probably not. Tell me what you think about Chelsea, what situation they're in. Tell me who you support, where you think they'll finish, and what signings you wish they brought in, which I will bring in on transfer deadline day. You'll be watching this on Friday, so the start of the season, and tell me how you think your team will do, obviously. But if you have enjoyed, make sure you hit that like button below. Like I've said, subscribe, and have a good one. Peace.